A man goes kayaking on a quiet Georgia lake and vanishes. No witnesses, no noise, just an empty shoreline and a family waiting for answers. The place where it happened, a lake locals don't just call dangerous, they call it cursed. This isn't the first time someone disappeared here, and it won't be the last. Something's wrong with Lake Lanier. A tranquil view of Lake Lanier, beautiful on the surface, but some say darkness lurks beneath. Late evening at Lake Lanier, the water lies still, moonlight glinting on gentle waves. Yet, there's an uneasy hush in the air. Locals know this lake's reputation. They've heard the whispers of a curse. Over the decades, hundreds of people have lost their lives in these waters. Some swear that when night falls on Lake Lanier, something watches from below. On May 2025, a warm spring day turned into a nightmare for one Georgia family. 43-year-old Dustin Valencia, a father of 5, went out for what should have been a routine kayak trip on Lake Lanier. He was training for a triathlon, battling for exercise on the lake's calm surface. He didn't wear a life jacket, confident in his skills. But on Wednesday, May 14, Dustin never returned home. That afternoon, Dustin's wife grew worried when he failed to pick up their children from school. Panic set in. She used a phone locator app to track him, and it pinged near Lake Lanier's shore. Authorities were alerted immediately. Soon, Forsyth County deputies found Dustin's black Honda Accord parked at Little Ridge Park, a popular lakeside access point. Scattered nearby on the shore were his flip-flops and the bag for his inflatable kayak, eerie clues abandoned by the water's edge. Rescue teams launched a search as dusk fell. Boats crisscrossed the coves, drones buzzed overhead, and divers descended into the murky depths. Friends, family, and volunteers gathered anxiously, hoping for a miracle. A vigil was held at a local church the next day, where dozens prayed for Dustin's safe return. But with each passing hour, hope waned. On Friday, May 16, searchers made a grim discovery. Using sonar equipment, Georgia Department of Natural Resources officers detected something deep in the lake's green waters. Divers moved in and, at about 51 feet below the surface, they recovered a body near the center of a quiet cove. The following Monday, officials confirmed the tragic truth. The body was that of Dustin Valencia. The lake had claimed another life. His inflatable kayak and paddle had been found earlier, floating eerily at the edge of the same cove where he disappeared. Authorities believed a sudden accident, perhaps a cramp or a swift current, knocked him out of the water. With no life vest, even a strong athlete could drown in minutes. There was no official cause of death released yet, but investigators found no sign of foul play. It appeared to be a heartbreaking accident, the kind that Lake Lanier is sadly known for. Dustin's story is haunting, yet it is only the last chapter in the Lake Lanier's dark saga. To understand why some call this lake cursed, we must delve into its history. Lake Lanier is man-made, a vast 38,000-acre reservoir created in the 1980s by damming the Chattahoochee River. In the process, the government bought out and flooded entire towns. One of those towns was Oscarville, a once thriving community that vanished beneath the rising waters. When Lake Lanier was filled in 1956, farms, homes, churches, and cemeteries were swallowed up. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had assured locals that all structures and graves would be relocated, but not everything was removed. Streets and buildings from Oscarville still sit intact on the lake bottom, like a sunken ghost town, and officials admit unmarked graves were likely left behind. Imagine entire blocks of a town submerged in darkness, echoing with lost history. It's no wonder people feel a chill about what lies below Lake Lanier. The land itself has a troubled past. Long before the lake, this area saw great tragedy. In the 1830s, the Cherokee people were forced from these lands during the Trail of Tears, leaving behind a legacy of suffering. Decades later, in 1912, the Oscarville community, largely black farmers and business owners, was violently driven out of Forsyth County by white mobs. Innocent lives were lost and an entire town was erased in an act of racial terror. Some say Lake Lanier's waters cover not just an old town, but the wounds of those crimes. They whisper that the lake inherited a curse, the restless spirits of those wronged lingering in the depths. By the numbers alone, Lake Lanier can seem truly sinister. Since its creation, an estimated 700 people have died here, an astonishing toll for any lake. Just between 1994 and 2022, over 200 deaths were recorded, and the accidents continue year after year. In fact, 2023 saw 13 deaths on Lake Lanier, far more than any other lake in Georgia that year. The next closest had only 3. This reservoir is one of the deadliest in the United States, and it draws 10 to 12 million visitors each year, many unaware of its dangers. But what makes Lake Lanier so dangerous? Part of the answer is hidden beneath the surface. Those submerged towns left treacherous debris, intact houses, tangles of trees, old roads that never saw sunlight. Swimmers have caught their feet in snagged branches or wreckage. Fishermen's lines sometimes snare on gravestones. The lake's bottom is an obstacle course that can trap the unwary. Officials note that outside the marked swim areas, submerged debris and drop-offs pose serious hazards. A simple dive or jump in the wrong spot can turn deadly. But statistics don't tell the whole story. It's not just about drownings, it's the bizarre incidents that fuel Lanier's legend. Locals speak of boats bursting into flames for no obvious reason, or engines stalling at the worst moment. In the summer of 2023, a series of freak accidents made headlines. One man drowned while swimming. Days later, another victim vanished under the waves. And in a truly strange case, a 24-year-old was electrocuted after jumping into the water near a dock. Even seasoned boaters have had fatal mishaps, like a 73-year-old fisherman who drowned after his boat seat suddenly detached, flinging him overboard. These stories are true, documented tragedies, yet they feel like scenes from a horror movie. Each summer brings more heartbreak. In one high-profile 2012 case, 11-year-old Kyle Glover, the stepson of singer Usher, was fatally struck by a jet ski on Lake Lanier. His grieving mother later started a petition to drain and restore the lake, convinced that something must be done to break the cycle of tragedy. Year after year, as accidents pile up, the lake's dark reputation only grows. People start wondering, why does this keep happening? Here, of all places. For many, the answer lies not in statistics or submerged towns, but in the supernatural. Lake Lanier's name comes up often in ghost stories and urban legends. Ask around and you'll hear plenty of bone-chilling tales. The most famous is the legend of the Lady of the Lake. It all begins in a moonlit night in 1958. Two friends, Delia Parker Young and Susie Roberts, were driving home from a dance. They sped across Lanier's Dawsonville Highway Bridge and never made it across. Their car veered off the bridge and plunged into the lake's depths. For a year, the women's fate was a mystery. Then, a fisherman made a ghastly discovery: a decomposed body floating near the bridge, missing 2 hands and several toes. No one could identify it at the time. Decades passed before the truth surfaced. In 1990, divers finally found the rusted wreck of a 1950s Ford sedan deep in the lake, with Susie's remains still inside. The floating body had been Delia's. That's the real history, but what keeps people talking is what comes after. Drivers on that bridge at night have reported a terrifying sight: a figure of a woman in a blue dress wandering along the roadside. She appears soaked with empty hands, some say missing her hands entirely, as if looking for something. According to the legend, this Lady of the Lake is Delia Parker Young, eternally searching for the lost body parts she left behind, and seeking to drag others to a watery grave. Many dismiss it as a ghost story, but after hearing it, only a few want to linger on that bridge at night. And there are other legends swirling in the misty coves of Lanier. Imagine being out fishing under a full moon and spotting, in the distance, an old-fashioned raft bobbing in the water. On it stands a shadowy figure, pawing along with a lantern in hand. More than one boater has claimed to see this phantom raft silently crossing the lake in the dead of night. When they call out or draw near, it vanishes without a trace. Who is he? No one knows, but some speculate it's a spirit from the old drowned town, forever faring between worlds. Swimmers, too, have felt the lake's eerie touch. On bright summer days, a sudden chill can strike as something cold and unseen wraps around a leg. Yes, unseen hands grabbing from below. Countless people have staggered out of the water shaking, swearing that something in the lake tried to pull them under. Could it be tangles of underwater weeds or the grasp of those long-lost souls? In the moment, it's pure terror. Then, there are the tales of the unfound souls. Over the years, dozens of people have drowned in Lanier and their bodies were never recovered. By one count, at least 27 victims vanished into the lake, never to surface again. It's said that those restless spirits now wander the shoreline or hover just beneath the water, beckoning the living to join them. A night fisherman casting his line might hear a faint splash that wasn't his lure, perhaps a ghostly swimmer. Local lore even ties the hauntings to the crimes of the past. They say the spirits of Oscarville, those who died in 1912 or whose graves were disturbed, cannot rest. Vengeful and restless spirits of those whose graves were flooded are blamed for the curse in one popular legend. It's a chilling thought, an entire community's anguish absorbed into the water itself. Of course, historians and officials are quick to call this fiction, but for those who have felt the spicy grip of Lake Lanier's waters, no skeptic can tell them they didn't feel something evil down there. When news broke of Dustin Valencia's disappearance, local headlines were somber. Another tragedy at infamous Lake Lanier, they called it. For residents of Forsyth County, there was a sense of dreadful deja vu. The community's outpouring of support for Dustin's family was immediate, but so were the murmurs about the lake's curse striking again. On social media and around town, people asked, how many more? And why always Lanier? There's a mix of frustration, fear, and resignation whenever this lake claims another life. At the candlelight vigil for Dustin, as neighbors held hands and prayed, some couldn't help but gaze out toward the dark lake in the distance. Friends described the family's anguish, the uncertainty, the agony of waiting during the search. As soon as we got the word, groups of people came together to pray, one family friend said, describing the wave of worry and hope that swept through the community. When Dustin's body was found, the hope shattered into grief. 5 children lost their father. The local church held memorial prayers. A GoFundMe was set up to help the Valencia's family cope with the loss. In the comments of these efforts, many offered condolences and a family warning: stay away from Lake Lanier. Please, be careful. Local authorities tried to focus on practical safety, even as whispers of the paranormal grow louder. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office emphasized water safety after this incident. One official gently reminded the public, even strong swimmers can have a medical emergency or cramp. If that happens, and you're not wearing a life jacket, you are at serious risk. It was a plea born of compassion. They've seen too many preventable deaths. Yet, to the community, it sometimes feels like Lake Lanier is beyond just human precautions. How do you fight a lake that seems almost hungry for souls? Local media often mention the lake's haunted history when reporting on accidents. Not to be sensational, but because it's become part of the context. The legend is now inseparable from the real-life danger. Every summer, sheriffs and park rangers warn boaters and swimmers about Lanier's hazards. The sharp drop-offs, hidden debris, heavy boat traffic, unpredictable currents, and every summer, some new tragedy adds to the lore. It's a cycle of caution and loss that has repeated for decades. So, what do we make of Lake Lanier? On the one hand, it's a beautiful recreation spot, beloved by millions. On the other, it's a place of extraordinary tragedy and spine-tingling legends. After Dustin Valencia's death, the questions loom larger than ever. Was this drowning simply a tragic accident in a dangerous lake, a convergence of bad luck and hidden hazards, or is it part of something that defies easy explanation? Those calm waters hide a history of violence, loss, and unanswered questions. Perhaps the real horror of Lake Lanier is not vengeful ghosts or curses, but the very real danger born from human folly. Building a lake over an old town, underestimating nature's risks, and forgetting the pain tied to this place. Yet, when you stand on Lanier's shore at dusk, feeling the silence settle, it's hard not to sense something watching. The legend, the history, the tragedies all blend into a feeling that the lake itself is alive with stories. In the end, whether Lake Lanier is truly haunted or just tragically unsafe, one fact remains: lives have been lost and families forever changed. The Valencia family's grief is real, as are the hundreds of others who've lost loved ones here. We owe them remembrance and respect. Perhaps the true mystery of Lake Lanier is why we keep returning to its alluring waters despite knowing its perils. Is it human denial? Or does the lake call us in some uncanny way? On a quiet night, if you find yourself near Lake Lanier, you might feel that call. You might look out over the glassy, dark expanse and think of the towns buried below and the lives taken above. Would you dare take a dip? The locals might warn you with a nervous chuckle. Be careful. The lake doesn't give up its secrets easily. As the legend goes, once the spirits of Lake Lanier have you in their sights, you might just become the next chapter in its story. Is it a curse? An unlucky coincidence? Whatever you believe, one thing's for sure: Lake Lanier will keep its mysteries. And the truth, much like the remnants of Oscarville beneath the waves, will remain submerged in darkness, waiting, watching, and whispering its eerie call each time the waters claim another soul. To be honest, this is a crazy interesting topic, and I actually really enjoyed this. It's a big read. Took a while to compose everything together. So if you like this, consider subscribing for more. As mentioned here, Valencia's family currently has a GoFundMe. So I'll leave the GoFundMe somewhere here or in the description if you'd like to support. Definitely a horrifying thing. We could only help so much, right? So if you're interested, find the link for the GoFundMe below and consider subscribing for more stories. See you on the next one.